All right, class. So here, don't laugh at me. Here I have drawn out my version of a nephron. Okay, remember what are nephrons? These are structural and functional units of kidneys. And each kidney has about 1.25 million nephrons. So you can imagine how tiny they are. Now here, all the black squiggly thing that I have drawn, that's a nephron. We will start by reviewing the anatomy one more time. We will label each part and then we will start talking about the arteries that form the portal system. We will talk how the portal vessel system we will talk about how the portal vessel system is associated with this nephron, right? And then we will move on to the process of urine formation. Are you with me? All right. So let's get started. This cup-like thing is called Glomerular Capsule. What's another name for this capsule? Also known as Bowman's capsule. Cool. This part is called proximal convoluted tubule. Then the hairpin loop thingy, this whole thing, this is the loop of Henle or nephron loop, same as loop of Henle. This is the descending limb. This would be the ascending limb. And then this big squiggly line, this is the distal convoluted tubule leading to the green tube, which is called the collecting duct. We get this, Rupa. Awesome, awesome. Now, let's do some important stuff. Very, very important. All right, I want you to pay a lot of attention here. We are actually trying to show you how the blood actually gets to the nephron. Okay, so please pay attention here. So imagine we have the renal artery here. Oh, man. This is the renal artery. Of course, we know that the renal artery comes into the kidney, then divides and redivides to form branches. We don't care about the names of those blood vessels in physiology. We just need to remember that from this renal artery, there is one branch that comes towards the nephron. And this vessel that comes into the nephron, this is called the afferent arteriole. Afferent arteriole, that's what we care about. The afferent arteriole will give rise to a capillary bed here, and this capillary bed is called, it has a name, this is called glomerulus. Say it aloud, glomerulus. The glomerulus will give rise to a second portal vessel, and this portal vessel is called this portal vessel is called the efferent arteriole. Well, the actual pronunciation is efferent arteriole, but since this is all online and so you might get confused between afferent and efferent. So I will just say afferent and efferent. Don't judge me. This is efferent arteriole. Okay. And then the efferent arteriole will form a capillary network. I'm not drawing it as a capillary. I'm just kind of doing it as a blood vessel. And then this eventually joins to form, renal vein. Sorry about that. Okay. So, what's the point, Rupa? we do see the afferent arteriole forming the first capillary bed called glomerulus. From the glomerulus, you have the portal vessel coming out called the efferent arteriole, which then actually branches to form the second capillary bed that covers the proximal and distal convoluted tubule and also runs along the loop of Henle. Do you see this? The entire secondary capillary bed is called peritubular capillaries. A second part of peritubular capillary is down here that I have drawn. That is called vasa recta. So together, the peritubular capillaries and vasa recta, this is actually the second capillary bed. And then this second capillary bed comes together and ultimately drains into the renal vein, right? So do you see a portal system here? Do you see a portal vessel system? Yes, we do. Afferent arteriole, that's the artery, leading to the first capillary bed, glomerulus. From the glomerulus, we have the portal vessel coming out called the efferent arteriole that branches to form the peritubular capillaries and vasa recta. Together, that forms the second capillary bed, which then comes together and drains into the renal vein. Hope this is clear. Why am I spending time on this? Because unless you understand this, unless you understand the orientation and how the blood vessels wrap around the nephrons, it will be really hard for you to understand the process of urine formation. Good? All right, let's move on. We don't need this. Okay, so this is looking at a nephron. This is from the textbook. So obviously you do see, let's look at the nephron on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, you see the Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle. You have the descending limb, ascending limb, and then you also see the distal convoluted tubule. I want you to notice that at this point, the distal convoluted tubule is actually kissing the afferent arteriole. This kiss or junction this junction has a very important anatomical significance and physiological significance, which we will discuss a little later in the chapter. But I want you to know that the distal convoluted tubule loops back to kiss the afferent arteriole. And then the distal convoluted tubule ultimately dumps into the collecting duct. On the right-hand side, we do see another nephron. The only difference is in their anatomy. The first one is called cortical nephron because it lies mostly in the cortex. This part is a cortex and this part is the medulla. This is called the cortical nephron. However, the one on the right hand side is called a juxtamedullary nephron because it has a long loop of Henle that goes deep into the medulla. I will not question you on a cortical nephron or juxtamedullary nephron in your exam, in your last lecture exam. The reason being these are more related to anatomy. We don't really talk about this in physio. So here, this is another representation of the nephron. So what do we see here? Do you see the renal artery? Yes, we do. So blood from the renal artery flows all the way into the glomerulus, which is the first capillary bed, remember? And then here in the glomerulus, a process takes place. And that process only takes place in the glomerulus. And that is called glomerular filtration. We will talk about this again later. This is where the blood gets filtered out, okay? And then all the waste products are filtered out here. And the wastes then go into this space called glomerular space, into the Bowman's capsule. From here, and this is the things that are filtered out of the blood into this space. The thing is called filtrate. What is this thing called? Filtrate. The filtrate will then pass along the proximal convoluted tubule. And as it passes along the proximal convoluted tubule, different things will be reabsorbed back from the filtrate into the peritubular capillaries. And then it'll move down the descending limb, up the ascending limb, into the distal convoluted tubule where other things will take place. We will talk about those later. And then ultimately the filtrate will be dumped into the collecting duct. When the filtrate comes to the collecting duct, we still call it filtrate. Water and sodium reabsorption might take place within the collecting duct, and the final product that comes out and goes to the ureter, this thing is urine. All right. Now, another important concept. So what do we see here? I want you to look at the nephron, just a tan colored nephron. So the nephron, we can identify the different parts, right? Bowman's capsule, PCT, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, collecting duct. We can identify all these. You can also identify the afferent arteriole that forms the first capillary bed called glomerulus. Then this is the efferent arteriole. See, this is the efferent arteriole. This is the portal vessel, right? That forms a second capillary bed. Do you see a huge capillary bed surrounding the PCT, DCT, and the loop of Henle? This whole capillary bed is the second capillary bed, which is divided into peritubular capillaries and vasa recta. Together, peritubular capillaries and vasa recta forms the second capillary bed of the portal system. All right. Now, think. At the glomerulus, I mentioned that glomerular filtration takes place, and the filtrate slowly starts moving through the PCT, loop of Henle, DCT. What happens to the filtrate when it passes along this tube? Well, there are three or four processes that take place, which is nothing but exchange of material from the tubule into the blood vessel. Do you see that? So there is this exchange going on between the capillary network and the tubule. And as things move in and out of the tubule and the blood vessel, of course that changes the composition of the filtrate flowing. And eventually when all this exchange ends, then we end up having urine, which is the fluid that we get at the very end of the collecting duct. All right, so what's the key point here? Hopefully you understand how the portal vessel is formed, how this second capillary bed wraps around the nephron, and most importantly, I want you to understand that there is this constant exchange of material between the tubule, between the nephron tubule and the capillary bed surrounding it. Things move out of the tubule into the capillary, and things move out of the capillary into the tube, and vice versa, all the time. Okay. So looking into the mechanisms of urine formation, there are four main mechanisms that we will discuss. The first one is called glomerular filtration. This, I want you to understand, this is the first step, and this occurs only at the glomerulus. That's it, only at the glomerulus. This is a filtration process by which there is bulk filtration. So everything gets filtered out. A lot of stuff gets filtered out, and some of those will be actually reabsorbed back into the system by a process called selective reabsorption. The third process is tubular secretion, and then ultimately the urine that is formed is excreted out via the ureter. All right, so I'll start with a new video. And